So sorry. I have one daughter who was in the program. We started in October of 2020 and she graduated December 2022. So she's been in remission for about 2 years now. And she dealt with dairy, egg, soy, gluten, tomatoes, and she is still allergic to eggplant. That's the one we did not choose to treat. So her biggest allergens were dairy and egg. So I'm really happy and thrilled to join this call.
And Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I have two kids in the program. We've been in the program for about 2.5 years. One of my children is allergic to tree nuts and peanuts, and then the other one that I'll be speaking about more tonight is egg and tree nuts.
And then last we have Melinda.
Hi, I'm Melinda, and I have two kids in the program. We've been in the program for about 7 years, and we started when they're about 8 and 10 years old, and now my son's going to be graduating from high school this year. We came to TIP having failed prior peanut and baked egg OIT. But in between the two of them, we treated eggs, legumes, all tree nuts, peanuts, and shellfish. And my daughter's been in remission now for almost 4 years, and my son just finished his last shellfish at the end of December 2024.
So I'm going to go into the presentation. So if you could hold your questions until afterwards, or feel free to drop them down in the chat. And then after the presentation, we could get started with them.
Okay, I'll start kind of giving a little bit of an overview about how eggs are treated here at TIP. We start by conditioning their bodies with biosimilar proteins to your child's allergens. And so for egg, the preconditioning foods may be chicken, turkey, caviar, depending on which proteins your child is allergic to. And you may have them either as a recommended food, which is eaten 3 to 5 times a week, or sometimes it could be outright challenged and then moved automatically into maintenance because they want you to keep a regular exposure to a specific amount of protein in your diet, or it may be dosed through as a treatment food and then later moved into maintenance. There's a general order of which the eggs are dosed in treatment. For patients with severe allergies, they may start with caviar and then move on to quail. Some patients do chucker, but not too often, as it is a seasonal egg that's laid, so it's not available year round. And then duck, and then hen. Which egg you start with in the latter will depend on how allergic your child is and which proteins they are allergic to. Egg whites are almost always more allergenic than the yolks, so yolks will be treated first before whites, and you'll move through the egg ladder. So, for example, if you start dosing with a quail egg yolk in treatment, when you finish dosing that in treatment, it will move into maintenance. And then you will start dosing the duck egg yolk. The egg yolks will tend to replace the prior egg yolk, and similarly, the egg whites will replace the prior egg white. And then after you finish dosing through all of the egg yolks and are maintaining hen egg yolk, and then dose through all the whites, when they're finally cleared with that, then you can combine them into one egg in maintenance. Sometimes your child will have to hold an egg yolk or white in maintenance for a while and dose through other foods, and then come back to introduce the next step in the ladder. This is so that they can have longer exposure before going to the next egg. And I guess we can go to the next slide about egg preparations. It does take a bit of time initially to get used to separating the egg yolks from the whites, so have patience with yourself. It does take a lot of practice, and you'll have some broken egg yolks and stuff along the way. But some helpful tools that you can use if you start with quail eggs is there's a quail egg scissors that's pictured below. That helps to cut the shell without breaking the yolk open. And then you can pour it into like an egg separator and separate the whites from the yolk.
Wait, let me
And then
make sure this is the right thing I'm supposed to be taking a zoom on. It's supposed to be um tip. Um no.
Hi. Did you need to unmute yourself?
What's on the can you
Are we okay?
just wanna make
Feel free to continue, Melinda.
Okay. You're going to get all this information on your discharge paperwork, so you don't have to write it all down. but this is just to give you an overview of how you prepare and isolate the egg yolks. First, you can crack the egg into the dish and then gently pick up the yolk with your fingers or a cupped hand and try to let as much of the egg white drain out between your fingers. Then gently cradle the yolk in your hand and run some warm water, just a gentle stream of it, and try not to let the stream of water hit the yolk directly so that it doesn't burst open. As you wash off as much white as you can, then you can transfer the egg yolk into a cup or a bowl that is filled with warm water and let it soak there for about 2 minutes. Then you can transfer the egg yolk gently into a small clean dish and use a syringe to draw up as much as you need with a syringe. There may be a little air, like a tip for those who aren't in nursing or something that use syringes often. There's a little air bubble at the tip of the syringe. So what you're going to do is drop a little bit more than the dose amount that you need. Turn the syringe upside down and tap the syringe so the air bubbles rise to the top, and then slowly push the air out until the stopper is at your desired dose amount. And then listed below are some videos, so that will give you the step-by-step instructions again and show you how to do it. The doses are going to start out really, really small. Some of it looks like almost like a size of a hole punch. You can use 1 ml, 5 milliliter, or 10 milliliter syringes, depending on how small your doses are. And yeah, I found that using different varieties of sizes was helpful as we made progress. I also found it was easiest to pan fry my doses into patties. That way I could make many weeks of dosing at a time, lay them out and freeze them, and then pull out as I need it and put them in the fridge maybe a day or two before. You cannot use, unfortunately, boiled eggs to dose with because it's harder to ensure that it is well cooked through, and also no liquid egg or powdered egg for dosing. Ideally, TIP wants to see that your child can tolerate the egg in its least manipulated form, so they prefer for you to use patties that are pan fried while you are dosing through it in treatment. And if your child has any symptoms or you need guidance, you can call the reaction line and speak with the provider on call. And then you could also send in a tip help form on Tip Connect for guidance as well. And at that point, they may instruct to mix it in volume with a carb or bake it. So we try to hold off on baking it while in treatment unless you have issues. When the egg is moved into maintenance, then it can be baked, but they also want you to have them eat it as scrambled patties from time to time, just to ensure that your child maintains their tolerance to all forms. For introductions, please bring the raw eggs to the clinic and the clinic staff will help you prepare for it. And then for challenge doses, because they're larger volume, you'll be given instructions on your discharge paperwork about how much to bring. Sometimes the challenge may be dependent on your lab results. So if so, you can email tip help a week prior to your appointment to get that challenge amount. And feel free to also bring in any safe vehicle foods or snacks that your child would like to eat with their dose. I think that's it for me.
Okay. All right. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. You're good.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, you muted again. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So to piggyback off of Melinda, she is right when they say the least manipulated form. Um, Unfortunately, my daughter did not tolerate those right away. So we have moved into the baking part of her dosing. And I had put a picture of a pan at the next slide, and you'll see I bought a brand new pan when we started this. And then as her doses have changed, I just take a different Sharpie and mark whatever doses I'm making. I tend to make more just because you never know when you'll need an extra one. And then I freeze them. But per tip, they recommend to get a batter, obviously that's safe for your kid, and one that they'll like a lot of muffins of. They like to, I put the dose individually in each muffin. That way you know exactly what is in that muffin. And the muffin should be about 4 to 6 bites, which I find is probably two heaping tablespoons, or 3 heaping tablespoons of batter for that each muffin. I do mix, I have a little process. I will do our quail egg whites, and then I will pull up the exact dose, put it in a clean little container, and mix it with the prepared batter. And then usually I'll add some applesauce to the batter to kind of help with the rise and the texture. But I think that's up to, whatever you prefer. Tip did provide different methods for different types of pans. I do everything in a muffin pan. I find it's easiest for me. But then the muffins are typically drier, like they say. So it's for those, it's 375 to 385 for 30 minutes. And I do run a little ramekin of water in my oven with it at the same time to kind of help them not overcook or burn the best I can. I am not a baker, so this is very challenging for me. And also with the syringes, when you're dealing with such small quantities, like the point 0.1, that air bubble does make a difference. So um, I do what Melinda had suggested by pulling extra and then making sure the quail egg white is all the way to the tip, so that way I know she's getting the right amounts. You can go to the next slide if you don't mind. Yep. And that's sort of my crazy pan just for my daughter. So that's how we are doing it. Thank you.
I love how you labeled your pan. I think that is such a great idea. My slide, I was just talking about some things that you can do when you're moving into maintenance and you have more options as far as cooking or baking, or if you do need to do it in volume. I've tried a bunch of different recipes, typically a vegan recipe, and instead of doing whatever the egg substitute is, I will put them in muffin tins as well, and then measure each individual dose into each muffin and mix it separately with like a toothpick or something and bake it that way. So there's a picture here of some blueberry lemon vegan gluten-free muffins that my daughter really liked. But we've done all kinds of different ideas to really get her interested. Um, some other ones were pancakes that worked well if I was also doing dairy and egg together for like a maintenance dose. So she was able to get a larger quantity in one item and she didn't have to eat multiple things in the morning. We've made our own pizza dough, French toast sticks, meatballs, just different things because when you're doing it for such a long amount of time, kids get bored. They need to mix it up to keep them interested and keep them eating. And another great tip that I had learned along the way was just to get my daughter involved in the process, to have her help bake it with me, to help her understand measuring. And we both kind of learned together, and she really enjoyed that. And it wasn't as much of a fight in the morning to get her to eat so many different foods. And then I also listed some other helpful egg supplies to have on hand, the quail egg scissors, like you had talked about before, the egg separator that was shown in one of the last slides, and syringes. I will reiterate again, having them in so many different sizes is really helpful. Even the teeny tiny ones when you're first getting started, and then up to, the 60 milliliter big mega syringes are really helpful when you're measuring. Freezer bags and tons of cupcake paper liners. You can go to the next one. Are we ready to start with dairy? Is there anything else for egg you want to add?
I think we're good.
Okay. So for dairy, the dairy ladder, we start with camel milk, then mare milk, donkey milk, goat milk, and then up to cow's milk. So it really depends on your labs and level of allergy of where you start in this process. So for my daughter, we started with mare. We skipped donkey, we went to goat and to cow's milk. They each have their own distinct taste and flavor. But we made it through. The mare milk for her was one of the easiest ones as it didn't have as strong of a flavor. But you typically start with denaturing. So that are the pictures that you see here are denaturing milk. We would get our mare milk in powdered form and follow the specific instructions for your plan on measuring that. We would mix the powder with water and then boil it on the stove. So I like to, and one of my great tips was to do a lot of this at once. It is time consuming and doing it over and over throughout the week can get challenging. Sorry. No, thank you. So doing a big dose of it, um, and then freezing it and then thawing the night before to use is the best way to go that I had experienced. And I would use breast milk bags as our storage. So if you have any extra of those laying around from the old days, those are super helpful. And even getting that, I don't know the name of it, but a container that goes in your freezer that kind of compresses them so they stand up straight so you can fit a lot in there is really helpful. And then labeling it all. So I've tried different methods, as you can see in the picture, of silicone baby food containers or ice trays, but breast milk bags was really the best way that I found. Good. And other ways to prep dairy once you move into different forms like cow's milk yogurt, having all those syringes in different sizes is helpful and doing as much at once as you can, just like denaturing the milk. So this is a picture of just 1 week that I had of all 5 milliliters that I had measured out, but I would label each week for the entire dose. So I would get the plan from my last appointment and just follow that while I was prepping, label everything, just stick it in the freezer, and then it was ready to go. Some helpful dairy supplies to have on hand are a large liquid measuring cup in ounces, a large stock pot so you can make big batches, a full set of measuring spoons and levels, and whisk and syringes of all size, breast milk storage bags, and Ziploc freezer bags.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone found that as helpful as I did. If you have any questions, now would be a perfect time to either drop them in the chat or even unmute yourself and ask verbally or outright. So let's take a look at the chat.
Okay,
But
I have a question. So I was following the directions on the camel milk box, I guess, and I got it from Tip, the facility, and nowhere on there did it say I needed to boil it. It just told me to mix it with water, and that's all I did. I did not boil it. And when I looked at the I think there was a scan thing, I scanned it and it wasn't for the same thing. So I felt like it didn't apply, so I'm confused. Am I supposed to be boiling it? Because I've been giving it to him without boiling it this whole time.
Can answer that. If your plan specifies that it's a denatured milk, you are supposed to boil them. The
Okay.
instructions for denaturing usually are on your discharge paperwork
Yeah.
below the dosing cycle. If it's an uncooked milk, then you don't have to boil it. You can also email into Tip Connect if you have a specific question about your plan, and they can verify
Okay.
what you should be doing. And let them know, I guess, if he's also been tolerating it unboiled, let
Yeah,
them know
how
that
long
as
have you
well.
done it unboiled for?
Um, I think we're on like week 3 now.
You should contact them. Maybe you can skip ahead. Like, holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah, he's had no issues with it at all. And I had no idea. So and I looked through my notes. It didn't say anything because I was trying to figure out what I should be doing, and it was on a Sunday, of course. So okay.
Yeah.
I will reach out to them. Thank you guys.
I have a question. So when we boil our milk, it actually, like, a lot of times, or sometimes, at least the mare milk did, it kind of curdled and like clumped. And then it didn't necessarily dissipate back into the milk. It just kind of like almost settled at the bottom of the pan and stuff. And so, is this normal that the milk? Because I tried to follow the directions, on the video, but to be frank, that video that they send, it's like it's it's not even an accurate video. The video itself is actually has a number of inconsistencies in it, some of which are just flat out wrong. I don't know if you've ever seen the video, so I don't know if I'm doing something wrong when I boil the milk or not.
I've experienced it where there's kind of a like film on the top. So I try to whisk pretty
Sure.
consistently throughout the entire time, but maybe turn your heat down a little bit if it's curdling at the beginning and try a little lower heat and see if that helps.
Okay.
And then at the end, if there is still a film, I usually just kind of scoop that off and toss that.
Yeah, I've had a film, um,
Mhm.
but yeah, okay, so maybe a lower heat. And when you
Maybe try
boil
that.
it, do you do like this rolling boil that's like high heat rolling boil, or do you do what's called more of a simmer in the culinary terminology?
It's been a while for me, so maybe someone else can answer that, but I want to say that I did a lower boil. It wasn't super high heat or, bubbling up and down.
Oh,
Could be
okay.
a lower heat. And then also you can make sure you mix, maybe when you're reconstituting it, mix it with warm water to help it dissolve better.
And Jody, I just saw wrote that hers clumps too. And I was wondering, is this something people see with just the mare milk, or have they seen it with the donkey milk and or the camel milk?
Would it be okay for someone from the audience
Yeah.
to share?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
nice.
I've experienced camel and mare milk. Um, we've gone through those, and I've experienced what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh,
It's almost
awesome.
like that the mare milk and even the camel milk. It's almost like it's already so saturated that it can't. Not like the water ratio is off, but I'm saying it's so it just doesn't can't um I guess dissolve completely. The amount of water, it doesn't seem to dissolve all of the way in some parts. You get that kind of clumping thing. I do agree with the person who says that, to do it at a lower temperature, definitely don't have it on high. You also risk burning the bottom of the pan as well. And but I've had better success of making sure that you put the powder into the water from the beginning if you're not. I used to warm it up first and then put it in, and it didn't dissolve as much as it dissolving along the way. Try to stir mare milk as much as you can in the very beginning if you're not when it's kind of cold. And I'd also kind of stir it a little bit throughout from time to time, not constantly, just to make sure that's helped. And I know what you're talking about because in the end result, I end up having to strain it to make sure that it's not kind of clumpy, chunky when you eat it, because then that's off-putting for anyone, for you, me, and especially the tip patient.
Yeah.
Trying to, and you want to be successful as possible. So, that's been my um, take on it. So
So
we're
my
doing
thought,
denatured cow milk, and it's very different. You're going to have
yeah.
such a easier experience with cooking the cow milk than the other two. So it doesn't clump like that, but you will get the skim that other people were talking about on the top, a little bit with the cow's milk. So.
And then I wondered, like, because they did one of the physician assistants said to strain, but I'm also worried if you strain like the clumpy parts, like I worry that those are the part that have the proteins that you need to be ingesting in order to develop the
I
tolerance.
agree. I thought that too. For me, it wasn't material enough to be concerned. I mean, if you're having a lot of it,
I'm having a
then
lot of it.
yeah, then that sounds like it was way more than I did. I mean, I had to strain it 2 or 3 times, but it wasn't in the whole. If you compare that the powder that went in versus the amount that was strained out, it wasn't going to be. I was hoping it wasn't going to be too much of a big deal.
I,
But yeah, you might want to call them. So
And I see Jody wrote, I have the exact same problem in questions. And it's interesting because we were just there today and 2 days ago and brought this up. And they said that they had never heard of anybody having this problem before. So I just want to say if there's anybody that gets any feedback or any whatever, if you want to tell them too, just to let them know that this is kind of a regular thing. Or if everybody can tell them the same thing, like it's like a curdling, it's like a clumping, it's like at one time I took my little blender thing and I blended the curdles back into it actually, and I thought, well, maybe I'm not supposed to do that, so I don't know. It's
That's a good
almost like
idea,
a
actually.
cheese.
Yeah.
Teresa puts it's almost like a cheese, or Teresa does. That's exactly right. It's almost like a cottage cheese, like it's like the beginning of a cheese, like a cheese master would be making or something.
I
So
think
I don't, yeah, go ahead.
it might be like milk fat that separates, and it does. It gives that film. And we used a strainer also, but like a hand strainer, so it's got a handle and then a little round mesh, fine mesh, and just kind of scooped it out. And that worked for us. I was also worried about removing precious proteins, but they said, no, it's
Yeah.
fine. And my son's now he's up to like we're almost through the program with dairy. So it worked okay for us.
Okay. Oh, good to know. Thank you.
To add to that, I just want to share the way that we mix it prior to meal. We get one of those like protein, one of those protein bottles, I guess it's called, that you put in your scoop of protein in your water and we pre-mix it. And then we put it in the pot to boil. So we give it a really, really good shaking before, and that really helped. And then we do a double strain after it cools down. Because I notice a lot of the buildup comes even after it cools down. Let it cool, then we double strain it. And my son is already almost about to get to maintenance for dairy. It's been okay so far.
Thanks. I think we heard some of that. Ariana is going in and out. But I want to say, if I'm repeating it correctly, you said a strainer is also what you use?
Can hear me better. We do a double, we strain it twice after the milk cools down. And that's when you'll get a lot of those clumps out of it. It's worked out for us. It hasn't affected him. He's almost at dairy maintenance in March. So, and we're already at cow's milk. So the whole time we've been straining it. And the other thing is that we pre-shake it in one of those bottles for protein, like the bottles that people use to scoop in a protein and water and mix it by hand. We give it a really good shaking before we put it in the pot to boil.
Thank you for that. And I heard you guys, so I wrote it down and I will let our team know that clumping is an issue so they could address it too. I did
I
have
did,
hmm?
oh, I was just going to add there's a special kind of joy that comes when you reach the goat milk and you realize that you can just buy it as a milk that exists in real life and you don't have to mix the milks anymore. I remember like wanting to cry in the grocery store picking up my carton of goat milk when we got to that stage.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They actually they actually have camel milk at the stores that are in bottles. But I didn't know if we could
Oh,
use that. Yeah, they do. They do. I've seen it on Instacart and at like Mother's Market or Sprouts, they have it. And I think Amazon even has it in a frozen form that they'll send it in the bottles. So
That's good to know. With that being said, I know Kimberly, you have a question. There was one question in the chat. Someone asked, what brand of camel milk do you all use? Or do you recommend? I know our team does sell them, so I want to say it's the powdered one off of the FAI store, but I don't know any of the volunteers, anyone on the chat, if you guys do have a preference for what you use. No?
We
All right.
had the Samuel. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we had the
No, go ahead.
Samuel. We had the Samuel one. I know the names tend to change on what they recommend over time, so I'm not sure if that's changed, but it it's like SAM, I think
yeah.
That was kind
AUL or
of my
something, or
question.
UAL.
We will be starting denatured camel, and I wanted to know, is anyone purchasing that from the store or at the clinic? And I'm asking mostly because if I were to order, I'm assuming there would be a gap and we would need to be prepared kind of ahead of time with the milks on hand.
Where do you all order from?
The store, the FAI store has been a game changer for me because with camel milk, I actually bought it on Amazon.com to find ours. And we did get it in reasonable time, but sometimes they would, be on back order, and that's a problem. So when they started selling the camel, they didn't always. We started our treatment in general in 21, so it's been in April. It'll be almost 5 years. I mean, sorry, it's 4 years. I mean, at that time, but anyway, so it wasn't like that before, but it is now, and I highly recommend if you do buy it from FAI, their store, they ship it to you like overnight or on 2 day or something, so you'll get it really, really quickly.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say here, a parent that is going through the treatment, we've been going up to the donkey at the moment. We've used the store. I think there is on Amazon, but one thing that you should do that we've been told that you're supposed to do is to stay consistent. So once you choose it, you have to stay with the same type of milk. Like I know with donkey, there's a lot more options than maybe with camel in terms of brands, and so we were given that instructions from the beginning. And the other thing we do is we try to order once one is opened, we always have an extra one just in case. So in terms of like shipment delays, we always have another can in the freezer.
Yes. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Zora. I have a 2-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and we are about to have our launch appointment in like 30 days. So feeling very overwhelmed, even listening. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of information. So, but this is preparing me, so I'm glad I'm here. Is there any for the parents that are in the program? Is there any items that I know some of the items were included in the slides, which I don't know if will be emailed to us or not. But is there any items, for example, syringes, like boards that you can put up in the kitchen that you can check mark, or anything that you guys have used that you can link on the chat so that like an Amazon product that I could order to help with the process? I don't even know what I'm looking for because we haven't even done our launch, but any items, go-to items that you recommend I buy before or while in the program. And if you can link it, it would be great.
And an item to purchase, but something that was super helpful for me going through the program was just putting together a binder for my daughter and keeping all of the treatment notes and after visit summaries in there as reference. So I could write on them, highlight them, make any notes, and then bring that with me to every appointment. And
Okay.
in there, I also kept a log. So every week I would just be pretty simple, like in Excel, Monday through Sunday, and then list out her morning maintenance foods and
Okay.
then her treatment foods and recommended foods. And I could just check off every time I gave it to her and it would, tell me the amount too. So I didn't have to think or go back and look up anything. Remember what week are we on? Just keep a record of that.
That was
And
in your binder? You put that in
yeah,
the
I just put
binder?
it all in one big binder. So it was
Okay.
all in one spot. You could tack it up on the fridge or something too, but
Okay.
just to make sure. And I would write it every time I came home from an appointment for the next cycle. So it was all done and it wasn't something I had to go back and look at because you're right, it is overwhelming and there's a lot
Yeah.
of information. So as organized as you can be, it will really help you.
Okay. Thank you.
I also have a suggestion based on that. Another tip mom actually gave me this tip before I started, and it was to download Genius Scan. And while I'm there, when they give me the paperwork, I just scan it, and I have everything on my phone. And I still have a folder like Jessica does as well, where I put everything. But having everything on my phone, it's always accessible no matter where I'm at, because it happens. You get so overwhelmed with things, and then you're like, did I do that right? And like right now, I was checking the instructions for the camel milk, and sure enough, it doesn't say for me to boil it anywhere on there, even on my paperwork. So I was very easily accessible. So it's a fantastic tool to just keep scanning on there. So
It's called Genie Tip
Genius Scan.
Scan. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
And if,
Um,
correct me if
I
I'm wrong.
just, oh,
Sorry, I just wanted to mention, like, I remember being in your place and being like extremely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I think from this moment until you actually have to start doing like those recommended foods and those maintenance foods, like there's a lot of time and a lot of visits and a lot of explanations. So just kind of take it right now, one day at a time, like you would do anything that's challenging in life, and just like know that by the time you get there, it's gonna become a lot clearer, and like try not to get too stressed out right now because it's gonna make sense as you go through it.
Okay, thanks.
And they're
Because you
very,
guys were
yeah,
speaking a foreign language to me. I was listening and I
yeah.
was like, camel, goat, what? What's going? But
Yeah,
thanks for
don't
saying that.
worry
Okay.
about it now. Yeah, I mean, we're not even that far through, and I still like am finally like I think it's almost been a year for us since we like first met with someone. And at first I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get through this program like in 2 years," and then I was like, "Oh wait, no, that no." And it seems really confusing, but once you kind of do it step by step, it will make everything clear.
Thank you.
And also, the program, the clinic, they will provide you with a chart. You can get it on their website.
Okay.
I use it, and every week you just get a new one, and you can, I don't know, pre-write the stuff and maybe make copies. But yeah, that's just said, like, don't get too overwhelmed. For the nuts, because although our son is not allergic to nuts, we have nuts on maintenance. We bought from OXO a lot of little pots that just like every day you just like dump it to make a pancake or anything or whatever you need to make. It kind of
Okay.
helps.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
I
Molly,
have a
you had a
question
question?
about eggs really quickly. Just anticipating our next visit is for duck eggs, and we have to bring those with us to clinic. And just like kind of understanding preparation. And I'll ask all these when we're in clinic, but I'm just curious from folks who have done it already. Like when you're traveling on vacation and things like that, and taking the egg doses with you, like what do you recommend from a storage perspective? I heard freezing in advance doesn't affect the protein, which is great. I was just curious. I know you said de-thaw in the fridge and give it to them that way. Just curious from like your experience, what worked the best for you, just to kind of logistically understand that. Because these eggs, honestly, the separating of the eggs, I'm already practicing. It's like giving me heart palpitations for the duck eggs and trying to find them. So it's a little bit challenging where we are in Chicago during the winter. But other than that, I was just curious what you guys had to say and offer up advice.
For traveling, for
Go ahead,
traveling
Holly.
for, okay. For traveling for our appointments and vacation and stuff, I also always prepared the egg doses whenever we returned from California, and I would just the next day make up all of the doses for that cycle. And we had little, like the little jewelry bags because sometimes the doses were really small. So, I mean, sometimes they would go in those bags. That bag was labeled. That whole week of doses would go inside like a sandwich bag. That bag was also labeled. And then, it would go multiple weeks of doses would go into like a large freezer bag. And we would just pull out the doses that we needed whenever we were traveling. And I mean, as food allergy parents, you're always bringing a lunchbox with food in it wherever you're
Right.
traveling to.
Yeah.
So I
We
mean,
know
the
that all too well.
doses, yes. So the doses that were needed, I would just throw in there with the lunchbox, and
So you would
transport
prep all of your doses for like the 9 week period right when you got home.
I did,
Oh,
yes.
that's
It
smart.
was
And then you
you
just
have
pan fry them so you
all
don't
the
have to like be on the hunt for your duck eggs at what like
yes.
every week.
Yep.
Okay.
I did it on like a griddle.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just hammered them all out at once because I mean you're getting everything out and it's just easier to do it. I would label paper plates. I
Hmm.
write on a Sharpie like 1 milliliter, 1.5 milliliter, and I would just make them up and put them on the paper plate that had that dose on it, and let them all cool, and then bag them all up and label everything and throw it in the freezer.
Well, that's smart. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Uh-huh.
I think when traveling, I also use those disposable souffle or jello shot cups, 1 ounce or 2 ounce ones, depending on your size. So then you
Yeah.
could just write the dose amount on the cover, and then
Yeah,
you
I've
could
got those
always
for like
check it.
maintenance and stuff like that too. So I
Yeah.
was just curious
Hmm.
for what we've got going on now. All right, that's
Hmm.
cool. Perfect. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I will let you know that we took a vacation for 2 weeks. So we took 2 weeks of, this is our first time ever doing this for that long. And I'll tell you, hotels have been really great. I don't know if everybody else has had a good experience or not. I've done this, but you got to keep things frozen, especially like with the topics in this session with the dairy and the egg, on like, powders or flours that, you don't you work with or nuts. They don't really have to be frozen. But we at every hotel we actually have a freezer backpack. So we have freezer packs and they're frozen, and um the hotel actually will keep it in their freezer if you ask them. And we would just go downstairs to the main, because sometimes you'll have a little freezer, maybe not, or a little refrigerator in your hotel room. Um and but if you want to keep things super cold for a long time and make sure they're safe frozen, we would actually have them store it during the nighttime. We would kind of keep it during the day in the refrigerator or so, and then have it overnight when we didn't need it, to keep them solid, so that they wouldn't spoil while we were driving several hours in the car, or flying on a plane, and they would stay kind of good to go and not spoil during that time.
Is there a certain period of time the eggs can be in the fridge for, or do they have to stay frozen until you give them?
All I know is that we kept ours frozen most of the time, and then we would take out. One thing I would say is we'd take out maintenance for the morning. So when we stored the backpack overnight in their freezer in their kitchen, or sorry, we would actually take out the maintenance for the next day and put it in the little mini fridge, so it would have a chance to kind of thaw out and be kind of ready to go for the morning. Um, and that's kind of how we did it, at least. We kept it frozen all the time. As to how long, I don't know. Because like I said, we usually kept it frozen as much as possible, because we were gone for 2 weeks. It was just a long time. Yeah.
Can
But
I
again,
say
the person who said that they do their whole batch as soon as they get home. I second that. While you have everything out, just do it and knock it out. And also, like you said, if you can find duck eggs and you're having a good shot, buy all enough. You're gonna probably have some misses where you break the yolk and you don't mean to, and you gotta get another egg out. But buy more than you need and just knock out the whole cycle and have it frozen, so you don't have to worry about shortages.
Yeah, I wanted to echo the travel thing. Like it could be really stressful, traveling with all the products and your concerns, especially going across the world. And I would echo that the hotels have been amazing. The places that we've gone, and their freezers are way better than the freezers in your room. So when you use you bake and make all those products, and you cry when something gets spoiled. So just take advantage of asking. It never hurts to ask, and even in other countries, they're very willing to help. And so yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's very stressful traveling, but all of that stuff, when you have other people that just understand and help you, it makes it a lot easier. And I did exactly the same thing. I'd go to the front desk, I'd take the stuff out, and I'd put it in our fridge for the day. And I do that every day. And so I got to know them very well.
I would clarify that when we put it in the freezer for overnight, in their kitchen freezer, is our whole freezer backpack went in, so it was great because
Same.
um
Yeah.
our God, the frozen ice packs, or they would be nice and solid too for the rest of the
Yep.
day when we traveled. We needed it back, and so it was a win-win. The backpack stayed cold, the food stayed frozen, and the backpack, the little freezer ice packs, got frozen solid too. So it was a win-win.
Yeah, and you didn't have to worry about someone else touching your food. And we didn't necessarily have a freezer backpack, but I just had a frozen, like I had like a lunchbox, but it was always rock solid hard, every time. And all they had to do was touch the outside. They weren't touching it in my food. And I was able to take out and just give it back to them every day. And I didn't have to worry about my freezer working or not.
Thanks so much. That's really helpful.
I wanted to ask if I could what people just do in general to eat when they're traveling and making sure that their kid is getting safe food. We actually live in Southern California, fortunately, so we don't travel to go to the Long Beach clinic. So we've actually never like traveled with our daughter, and we just haven't the slightest clue how we would even go about doing that. Just feeding her.
There's
I can jump in on that too.
there's got I can speak to that. What two things? One, out of the country, we ended up buying cards that were in the language of the country that we went to, and so we were able to share with whoever was serving us in their language what our son was allergic to. So that we found that really helpful. And we also just made sure we traveled with someone who knew the language. So that was like our backup plan as well. The card was the backup plan, and the person who spoke the language was first. As far as in the US, I haven't used them in a while because my son's almost done with the program and he's doing so well. So keep pushing through. You'll get there. We're also in Southern California, but there are apps and websites online that are really awesome. People that have blogs and stuff that talk about different places that are allergy friendly. And I think one of the hardest trips I ever took was my son's eighth grade um, Northeast trip. That was a really stressful trip for me, but everything went well. And I'm glad that he had a good time. I did not, but he did, and everything was safe.
I can tell you as someone who travels from Chicago, and we travel a lot. As a family, we stay in hotels mostly versus Airbnb. First and foremost, you can ask the plane to board first and wipe down the seat, make sure everything is safe. So there's no allergens on there. And they always let you do that before, like, so you can pre-board. And then when you're traveling, I always call the hotel in advance and let them know about our allergies and request a fridge and a microwave to be in the room, and then do a grocery shop. So, I can give her something safe to eat prior to ever going to a restaurant. And places like Marriott's and things like that are super allergy friendly as well. So they're really good about, making it safe. Yes, it's for you. For, eating out and they'll accommodate you, which is always really, really nice. But that's been super helpful for us because they are always able to supply a microwave in the room if there's not one there. So we can, make her like chicken nuggets or a quesadilla or whatever it might be if she's, not, obviously she doesn't have a dairy allergy, but, she's got a ton of other things. So that's always really helpful.
Yeah, and
I
I would
think
say for us
Molly,
traveling in the US, we did if you can swing it, Airbnbs sometimes a bit better than hotels if you can swing it. It saves and you can cook your own stuff and then you have peace of mind.
tip. Molly, I think you had a question.
I do have a question. Thank you. My daughter's 18. She had her labs a couple weeks ago, and she'll go for her first visit in March. She is a freshman in college at UC San Diego, and I live in the Bay Area. That's home for me, and I plan to fly down for each of her visits, or my husband will. But I'm just wondering if anyone has older kids, like teens, kids living independently, and tips about, she's very capable, but she's also a freshman in college. It's very overwhelming. There is a communal kitchen in her dorm. Um, and she has her own fridge in her room, but the freezer's not very big. So leaving her, both preparing all her portions, leaving them in a communal fridge, things might go missing or get contaminated. I'm just wondering if anyone has tips about how to handle that, or will I be like flying down there an extra lot with a freezer backpack and supplying her? One thing that occurs to me is I have a friend there. I stay in her casita, and maybe I just end up staying after her visit for a day and we cook together, leave some at my friend's casita, which she can like lift to or take public transportation to when she needs to resupply. Something like that. Just help me orient to this.
I have a little experience with that. My son, I live in Southern California, and my son is in Baltimore on the East Coast. He's been a year and a half at Johns Hopkins University there. Um, I really relied on the disability program of that university. Um, at first, they couldn't supply him with a refrigerator in his room, so they had to move things around, and he ended up getting his own dorm room with two bedrooms, where one bedroom had his refrigerator, and then the other bedroom he slept in. And so they can accommodate a lot of things because it is a disability. And so that was one thing. My son is allergic to all nuts, sesame, dairy, gluten, and eggs. So everything. And this is our 5th year in the program. And so you can imagine we have a lot of maintenance foods that he has to keep up with. So what I do, it's usually a 2 month supply that I make, and it's baked into something. So I'll do like a frittata or some kind of pizza or something, of all the foods that he's supposed to eat for the day. Some of them are 3-day maintenances, some of them are 1-day maintenance, some are every day. So I would make like 3 different batches of 3 different things, and each one would have all the foods that he has to eat for that day, and he would just have to grab it and eat it. And they're all in the freezer, and he takes out 1 bag at a time, which has his whole week's worth, and puts it in the refrigerator, and just grabs that one thing, and he has to eat it. Obviously, yogurts sometimes are a little bit, you can't bake those into things, so he'd have to eat that on the side. But that's how, and it's been working. This is his 2nd year in college now, and he's been able to maintain that.
Congratulations, that's awesome. And just another quick question. Her lab work was 2.5 weeks ago. About when will we hear what the results of that are? Like if there's more allergens than we knew about. She's dairy and cashew and beef, but there might be more.
I'm not sure. Do any of the volunteers know about what time, how long it took?
Do you remember how long after your labs you got
Yes.
results?
So once you get your labs drawn, we just did these for both of my kids. You're supposed to send a message that you did them so the lab team can start tracking them. And then about 2 weeks after that is when we got the interpretation of the results. So it took about a month.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you repeat? I missed like a couple words there. She has to
So,
do something?
well, so she went to get her labs drawn, correct?
Yeah.
So whoever got the email or the order to get the labs done, that person needs to notify on that same email that the labs have been drawn. That way they know to go and look for them. That's what ours always say, the lab team.
I've also been able to go
confused about that.
Okay.
She went to FAI or tip, whatever, tip. Got lab,
Melinda, you want to chime in?
talk to people. Won't they know she had labs?
Yes.
Okay,
So you're
go
talking
ahead.
about someone who's launching, right? Just launched.
Lot.
So the
Well,
labs that
I
you're
don't
talking
really.
about,
They
yeah,
say
the
launch. They
terminology.
say she has her first appointment in March, but she had her. They like have so many words for intake and different onboarding.
I know the answer. I know the answer to
Okay,
this because I
thank you.
reached out to them.
Thank
So
you.
we had our original onboarding where they took labs at that time for us. I was hoping I would get the results because there's like a 3 or 2 month period between the time that we got the labs drawn to our launch appointment, which is in a month. I was hoping that we would get the results beforehand before we get to that launch appointment so that we can start either eliminating or being careful around foods that came back that we weren't aware
Makes
of.
sense.
I reached out to TIP and I said, hey, when are we getting these results? Their answer was, you are not getting these results. Your results will be discussed with you at the launch appointment when you show up at your next appointment. They're not going to send it
hear
to you.
anything. Okay. So
Yeah. And someone told me that if you push them on it, they will give you that information because they legally have to. I'm not stirring the pot. So if they don't want to, yeah. So they said, no, you're not going to get it until you actually show up at your next appointment.
Okay. It's been a little bit confusing because she's 18 and she's making her own appointments.
Yeah.
And because of HIPAA, I don't like always have access, but I'm paying the bills and I'm her mom and I want to know what's going on. So
yeah, she won't get it until she shows up for that launch
okay,
appointment.
unless we
And
push
that's
a
when
little
they give it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Melinda,
Can I
were
chime
you
in?
trying to add something?
Yeah, I'm going to chime in. So for
Okay.
launch appointments, you can actually get your lab results before your appointment, but they will not give you the lab analysis and the plan ahead of your launch appointment, but you can get the hard raw data. So
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you.
yeah, but they want to interpret everything with you and discuss it with you at the appointment with the provider. And then I think what Danielle was talking about with like a 4 to 6 week turnaround, that's for local in-cycle labs that are done for patients who might have to get labs mid-cycle to determine what their next challenge dose is going to be. So there's 2 different sets of labs that we're talking about.
It's volunteer parents who are like experts.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Allison, did you have a question?
I did. I don't know who mentioned it, but maybe Jessica, you said that you had a child who was allergic to some other things.
You are a bit far. Would you mind coming closer to the mic?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I think someone like Jessica maybe mentioned that they had a child who was allergic to tomato and eggplant, things that are outside the norm here. Did the food allergy institute treat those for you or offer to treat them? Or
Yes.
was that something you pursued after?
So at the end of everything, once we went through the whole program, is when we treated tomato, and it was kind of like a one-off thing. They gave me a very specific, much shorter plan to do dosing with that. We were really successful. So it was kind of like a fast and furious treatment cycle. And then with eggplant, they did give me a plan, but personally, we just chose to not treat it as it's not, a food that we run into often and not one that I thought my daughter would enjoy dosing enough. So it's just kind of a cost benefit analysis for us. But they were willing to give us a plan if we ever wanted to go back and work on it. I have it written down.
Okay, thank you. So it wasn't part of your original plan visits?
Correct. It was not counted in our visit number. No.
That's what I was wondering, because we have some odd ones too, the garlic and onions, and so that probably
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on your values of allergen for those things too. So ours weren't that high, so they were more comfortable of giving us a quicker, shorter plan for that.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if somebody else has a question, but someone asked in the chat, what does maintenance look like for you all? So for example, if you finish one allergen and then you're hopping on to the next one, what does that mean for the one that you just challenged or you just accomplished? Who wants to grab that one?
For us, we had quite a few foods and maintenance at the same time, even a few, like I know someone else had mentioned nuts and that not being an allergen. So for my daughter, that was not one of her allergies, but it was in our maintenance for a long time. So it really is just very dependent on your child and what that looks like.
I can speak to that a little bit too. We currently have about 9 maintenance foods, and we're a year into the program so far. My daughter, her main allergies are peanuts, tree nuts, sesame, and eggs. Also, we've got a slew of other ones in there as well. But whatever you are dosing for at the time, once you food challenge that at the clinic, that will then turn into a maintenance food. And for the new parents on there, those maintenance foods are added to their daily diet in the morning. And so like we have, for example, now chickpea flour and pumpkin seed and chia, and we start out with alfalfa powder and black beans in the mix there. And now she no longer has to take alfalfa powder, so things drop off as you go back and they do more testing, and she starts to, tolerate things better. But, from my understanding, a lot of these are protein similar foods to get them to their true anaphylactic allergens to help prep their body to receive those allergens. So she has, 9 flours and seeds that we take daily. And Amelia's a little trooper. She just loves to mix them in applesauce, which looks gross and probably is gross, but she says it tastes great. You can hear my oldest chiming in the background, but you'll find what works for you. Some people make muffins for their maintenance. Some people make cupcakes. Emmy doesn't like that. She'll either drink it in a smoothie or she'll drink it in, eat it in applesauce. But, long story short, you'll figure out your way. It just becomes staying organized, getting those charts together, prepping the food in advance so you don't have to think about it, so your mornings aren't crazy.
And Jaya, did you have a question, or Jaya?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess this is a question about sort of mild reactions, and I have a message into the Tip Connect about this as well. Is that so we're about a year into the program. My daughter is now cycling through donkey milk and is near the end of it, like near the challenge quantity, and lately is getting more frequent stomach aches, like on up dosing in the last couple of weeks, and I'm just kind of wondering if like up until now she's had no reactions to anything. In the longer term, is that a normal thing where other parents are seeing this in their kids, where they might have like low level reactions that you just kind of plow through and continue with? Because I'm trying to wonder, what this means for us.
I think that's different for everyone. But for my daughter, we experienced something similar when she was on goat milk, and they had me start mixing it in volume. So instead of just doing her goat milk directly, even when it was denatured, she would mix it with a little bit of oatmeal or rice, and that seemed to help her. But I know it's just dependent on your own experience and what they would recommend.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I guess, still being relatively new to the plan, like, historically with allergies, like if you feel like your kid is having a reaction, then you stay away from that food. But that's not what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to get them accustomed to it. So I don't know what that looks like.
We
I would
had
recommend that you,
oh, go ahead, sorry.
I would recommend that you write into Tip Help and let them know so that they can make changes to your plan if it's happening recurrently. I don't think you should push through symptoms. Like, I don't think it's normal for your child to have symptoms with every dosage. We don't want that to be happening.
Okay.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. It's Jennifer Ratzlaff. I thought I'd speak to that issue because my son just went through it. He's allergic to peanuts and lentils and sunflower seeds. But the point of it is we started this program 6 months ago, and 5 months in was fine. He would take his maintenance food. It was pine nuts, almonds, hazelnut, just a handful of nuts, and then evening something else. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, he started getting really bad stomach aches. So what we finally had to do, he now has to eat breakfast, 2 to 3 ounces of a carb, like a starchy carb food. And I was very nervous. It took us like 5 weeks to get back on track, but we did, and now he's fine. He just has to eat breakfast. So just letting someone know if they're experiencing that. I was really nervous because we were only about 6 months in, and it just happened, but now we're back on track. But to someone made the point, if their stomach is really bothering them or something, that's not normal. So I emailed, the Food Allergy Institute was great. I emailed them and they were really involved, got back to me right away, and we worked out a plan. So I wanted to share that because that was just recently in the last, like, November-ish.
Something to add that we've experienced as far as reaction. We've been in the program 4 years. My son is getting pretty close to like completing most of these. We're already dosing peanuts. But with the nuts, what we've noticed over the winter months, even though we've been in the program so long, his lips chap pretty easily, and that can cause a reaction. He first started with like full on having swollen lips. And in the last week, 2 different times, he broke out in rash and hives, where we had to do scenario one. And it's all been because of chapped lips. So even though we're far into the program and he's already dosing peanuts, having chapped lips can really trigger a reaction. So if anybody is experiencing something like that, or if you're anybody's dosing nuts, what we do is we do chapstick, and then I like smother his lips with Aquaphor ointment at night to try and like maintain his lips as controlled as possible. But even in the mornings when we do maintenance for any nuts, peanuts or tree nuts or not peanuts, tree nuts or seeds, I always do chapstick. And then evening, same thing for the peanut treatment. We do chapstick and then try to maintain it with the ointment.
The only time that my kids ever had issues with the stomach aches was whenever, well, only my son ever had this issue, but he was a little bit backed up. And so, they said that it was just too many allergens in his system at one time. So I would just also make sure that your child is having regular bowel movements and everything too. And then I also just wanted to say for chapped lips, my daughter like licks the entire way around her mouth. And we have found that the lanolin, like the nipple cream that you use whenever, you're breastfeeding, that works extremely well on chapped lips.
I will say that for us, and I agree with what everybody else has said, spot on. I would also recommend that you send an email to Tip. We've only had one, like I said, we're almost at 4 years. Well, because if you count launch, it would be September, it would be 4 years. But we've only had one issue with stomach aches. That was our only symptom, and we got it resolved very quickly. It turns out what they told for us to do was to have him just stay on the level where he was. Actually, maybe backed him down a little bit, actually, on the level of dosing he was doing. And uh, again, they said so we can rule out being backed up because they said he does have regular bowel movements. He's been doing fine. they had us go anyway. And so not only did they back us slightly down, they also sent us to get an X-ray, which we had done. It turns out there was some backup stuff. So we started dosing in volume, like someone said, I don't know if it's Melinda or someone, but we started dosing in volume with, eating some rice and, eating this dose. It was for sesame for us. And like I said, the X-ray came back, so they also, if there is something, they'll have you probably go on Miralax for just a short stint. I think ours was like 5 days or something like that, maybe seven at the max. And after that, he's been fine. No more Miralax, no nothing. But we did keep him with sesame always, eating, a bunch of rice or whatever before he dosed sesame at the time. But now as years have gone by and his numbers have come down, we don't even have to do that anymore with stuff with sesame. It's been fine without even doing volume now. So, but I would recommend you contact TIP, have them give you a plan. You might want to get checked out, even if they're having regular bowel movements, to have an X-ray done, just for peace of mind, to rule everything out and make sure that he can have a smooth transition going forward.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the input from the people who spoke and also from all the comments. There's been a lot of really helpful comments on the chat too. Thank you.
Yes, Danielle, did you want to say something?
Yes, I can speak to the all the KUBs and volume dosing for us. My daughter is, we have to bake our eggs right now because we've having a hard time advancing with the pan-fried quail egg whites. Um, and we rate her stomach pain. It's all because of stomach pain. And we rate it based on a pain scale of 0 to 10. And, that way I can kind of gauge where we are in our treatments. So I'm highly jealous of y'all that pre-batch all of your stuff, because every time I've pre-batched all of her stuff, I've had to toss it and start over because we have to do 2 days of 0.8, 2 days of 1. It's a very specific plan for her. But I did not, to the point of like, don't push through it. My kids are teenagers and they don't like to share the things that maybe younger kids want to share with you. So trying to discern what normal poop looks like for a teenager is not easy. So I have now a poop chart with our other charts, just so everyone can be on the same page. It's highly embarrassing for them, but not, I'm mom, it doesn't matter. Um, but she finally realized after that, we got the KUB because I said, no matter how much you don't want to tell me, the truth will come out. So weeks after all of this sleuthing, we did the KUB over Christmas. Sure enough, it's backed up. We attributed that to a lot of her stomach issues. She had to go on a 24-hour Miralax cleanse, very detailed instructions provided by TIP. Um, and then we are now dosing Miralax as part of her daily treatment. And that will continue probably for until we're done. But we have backed up on our eggs and we're still baking. So we're still trying to cross the hurdle of what's the right dose for her, because just went to another dose yesterday and she told me she's a 2 out of 10. So it's a constant back and forth, but keeping them regular and trying to find out what is a normal. I think that the poop chart was helpful in that regard because my definition of normal and hers are not the same. But now I think she gets it. So it's helped us, but it's definitely something to share with your providers.
Hey, I appreciate you sharing that. I have some of the same issue with my son. The teenagers, they don't want to tell you everything's great. And I, unlike you, have tried to ignore it. But you bring that up, and I think that his poops haven't been normal for a long time. Anyways, it's not a conversation about poop, but I just appreciate you sharing that and just me putting it on the radar. And maybe there's another way we can communicate with each other, not you and me, but my son and I, as to what's normal and what's not.
I text a lot, just so you know. My kids seem to answer me better with text
Yeah.
messages than with anything else. So I just went ahead and texted my daughter the poop chart, and I have one on my files, so I can have it available at any time. And we're very open in our house about conversations. So They know that I will ask any questions, so they tend to answer me up front, and we're getting a better read on how those things work. But I definitely think, TIP can give you the scale that they use, because if you Google it, it's quite, I don't really want that on my Google history. So TIP will provide that for you, and it'll at least be the same, everyone's speaking the same language, and then your kids can at least say, okay, I got it. So
Yeah, I guess
hopefully it
I'm
helps you.
curious. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm curious I don't know if there's tip crew here right now, the ladies that are proctoring this I know we focus a lot on the anaphylaxis because obviously that's crucial. But I do believe that my son has, especially with the dairy, had quite a few setbacks because of non-anaphylactic side effects. And I have to say, I'm still like, we're so much better now, but I think that's maybe where I failed to not call in or to email. As most of you know, emailing is way better than calling in for a tip. But just, I don't know. I would love if there was some type of, I don't know, communication, education about some of these other side effects that our kids can have and how we can go about navigating those through the program. Just kind of a food for thought, no pun intended, for the tip people.
Yeah, thank you. I'm jotting that down and I'll probably ask the right person. So are you, just to make sure that when I do ask the right person, I'm giving you the right answer, what specifically are you looking for?
So it was just when we go on our appointments, when they say, have you had any issues or anything like that? And actually, they really don't, I guess, because it's our job to call in if there's an issue. And I'm not sure what it would look like. Does it look more like even on the handouts that you guys give us, or they give us, which is so helpful, adding maybe some other things, even though it makes it seem much longer, like do we call in when our son is complaining of a sore throat every other week? Are we just to ignore that? Or when your gut tells you you think it's from the dairy, do you call in? And so I guess that was a struggle. We're over the hill right now. He's on cow's milk, guys. Please applaud. We're so excited. We're almost done with the program. But dairy was his nemesis. It was a hard allergen. We're not quite there yet, but it was better. But yeah, those were the things. He had all these little side effects that we kind of just, at the end of the day, Tip just drummed it up to, well, it's flu and cold season, no big deal. But he really struggled through it. And I can't help but in hindsight, maybe a better look into that, whether it's through statistics or asking the questions of the moms and the dads. You know, are these issues that maybe need a more of a global addressing so that we all have peace of mind as parents of these kids with allergies that are going through the program.
Yeah,
I hope that was more specific. It wasn't
it
really.
was.
Okay.
It definitely was. And I would say also, even if it seems like it's like non-urgent, if your gut feeling is telling you this may have something to do with the food you just ate, or maybe like a reaction that's not anaphylactic, but I still think it's some type of a reaction, always, you know, connect with us, put it on Tip Connect, give somebody a call and tell them what's going on. We're here to ease your mind at the end of the day. So we'll either find the answer, we'll tell you it's not related, or we'll tell you it is related, and this is what we could do about it. So definitely don't keep it to yourself if you think it's related to the program.
Yeah, I think over time I was able to discern the two. I'm just glad to be on the other side of it.
Yeah. No worries. Well, we're 15 minutes over. I do want to say thank you to everyone for coming up, to our volunteers and to the the parents on the call for answering questions. I think this has been our liveliest one yet. Everyone, I feel like, is starting to get more comfortable and talking to each other more. This was great. I hope you all found it helpful. The slide that I have up right now has links to different Facebook pages, whether it's regional or it's a blog, like the blog that we have in the bottom corner belongs to Holly's kids. So if you would like to follow their journey, you can do that over there. But I'll send this over to you in a follow-up email. And then I also have some of the mentors who were on the call today, their emails. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to them as well. I know Rolla was on the call earlier. I'm not sure if she's still here, but she answered a question on college. She's one of our new volunteers, so I'll also get her email address and I'll share it with you all if you have questions that you want to ask. Thank you again for joining. If you have any questions, you have my email, so feel free to ask me questions as well.